We're making a high-protein, flavor-packed bolognese-style pasta. It's made with juicy ground beef, a creamy Greek yogurt marinara, a medley of vegetables including zucchini, mushrooms, and onion, and they all come together for a hearty, nutritious meal that is quick, easy, and absolutely delicious. Hello, my name is Nicole Bonilla, and if you love healthier recipes to our favorite foods, then you are in the right place. I love this pasta because it's high in protein and it has lots of veggies. Now you're welcome to jot down these ingredients as we go along, or you can click on the link that's in the video description below, and that will take you to the full recipe with all the details, including the nutrition facts, ingredients and substitutions, and frequently asked questions. Now the key to adding lots of vegetables to the pasta is to chop them down nice and small. So the first thing we'll want to do is chop down our vegetables. So I've just taken half of a white onion and chopped it nice and fine. Then I took about 4 ounces of mushrooms and chopped them nice and small. And then I took 1 medium green zucchini and finely diced it. And then I minced 4 cloves of garlic. So now that we have all the vegetables chopped, we're going to set them aside while we brown our meat. Now for the pasta, you could use any pasta that you like, and I really like using this high protein pasta. But if you need gluten-free, you could certainly use your favorite gluten-free variety. And you'll just want to cook your pasta according to the box directions. And I like to cook up about 8 ounces of dry pasta. So I have a pot of water behind me that's coming up to a boil that I added about a teaspoon of salt to. So for the meat, you'll just need 1 pound of ground meat, and you could use your favorite variety, including ground beef, ground chicken, or ground turkey. And then I'm using my Hex-Clad hybrid pan, and I'm just bringing it to a medium-high heat. And then I'm going to add about a tablespoon of some light olive oil. And I'll carefully add in 1 pound of some ground beef. And I like using the 85% lean beef. And then I'll just start to break this up. And then to add a ton of delicious flavor to this meat, we're going to add some really simple seasonings. I'm going to start with a teaspoon of paprika, a teaspoon of garlic powder, a teaspoon of Italian seasoning, a teaspoon of salt, and about 1/8 of a teaspoon of some black pepper. And to make it extra juicy and flavorful, I'm going to squirt on about a tablespoon of some Worcestershire sauce. And then I'll just chop down the meat with my spatula while we spread the seasonings. And then we'll just let this cook for several minutes, stirring it occasionally until our meat is cooked through. And the pot of water behind me just started to boil, so I'm going to add our 8 ounces of penne pasta. And as you're cooking your meat, you can decide if you want to keep the pieces a little bit larger for some bigger chunks, or if you'd like to break it down so it's really small. I like to leave mine a little bit on the chunkier side. While we're waiting for the meat to brown, we can go ahead and blend together our marinara sauce with our Greek yogurt. And this is the easiest way to have a delicious sauce that is creamy and higher in protein. So I've just emptied this 24-ounce jar into my food processor, but you could also use a blender. And then I'm adding 1 cup of some plain Greek yogurt. And then I'll just blend this up until it's nice and smooth. So after blending for about 15 seconds, our sauce is nice and smooth, and you'd never detect there was Greek yogurt in there. And then we can set this aside. And I no longer see any pink on our meat, so it is done. So I'm gonna go ahead and transfer this meat to a plate with a paper towel on it. And this will just help soak up any excess grease. And then I'll just go over to my sink and pour off this excess grease into a disposable container, and then we can use the same pan for cooking up the vegetables. Now since our pan is very well greased from the meat, I don't need to add any additional oil. So keeping it at a medium-high heat, I'm just going to add in our onions and our zucchini, because these will take the longest to cook and soften. And then I'll just season with a little bit of salt, and then give those a good stir. And then to help these cook down and soften a little bit quicker, I'm going to go ahead and put a lid on my pan. Our pasta has now cooked for about 9 minutes, and it's perfectly al dente. So I'm going to first dish out a little bit of the pasta water. I'm going to keep about a half a cup of it, just in case we want to thin out our sauce later. And then I'm just going to pour this into my sink to drain off the excess water. And I love using my Hex-Clad hybrid pots in addition to my pans, and I've included a link in the video description below if you'd like to check them out. So after draining off the pasta, I just put it back into my pan. And since our meat is nice and warm, I'm just going to add this to the pasta in the pot. And I'm going to come back and give our vegetables a good stir. And then I'm going to pour our sauce right into our pot on top of our pasta and our meat. And then the warmth from the pasta and the meat will instantly heat up our sauce. And then I'm just going to put on the lid, and then we'll just let this hang out until our vegetables are cooked. Now you can see our vegetables are starting to soften and reduce in size, but they're not quite there yet. So I'm going to go ahead and put the lid back on and give them another couple minutes, because the softer they are, the more they meld into the sauce and the pasta. Now that our vegetables are much softer, I'm going to go ahead and scoot them to the edges to make a little well in the center. And I'll pour in just a little bit more of our olive oil. And then we can add our minced garlic right into that oil to get it infused with that incredible flavor. And we can add in our chopped mushrooms, because the mushrooms do not take very long to brown. And then just give these a good stir with that garlic. And then I'll put my lid back on for about a minute or so and allow those to cook down. So after a minute, I'm just gonna come back in and stir those mushrooms that are starting to wilt. And the aroma is incredible. And I almost forgot to put a little salt on our mushrooms. That'll really bring out their flavor. And then I'll let this cook for about another 30 seconds to a minute. Now, if you could use more healthy inspiration on a regular basis, I invite you to join my email list. All you have to do is click on the link in the video description below, and that is the best way for us to stay connected. Now that our mushrooms are nice and reduced, I'm gonna go ahead and just stir all of these vegetables together and give them just a little hit with my Italian seasoning. Well, now that our vegetables are all cooked, we can assemble our pasta. So I'm just gonna empty the meat and the pasta and sauce into my nice big serving bowl. And it's had some time for all those flavors to really come together and stay nice and warm. And then we can add in our cooked vegetables. I love using these vegetables because they're really subtle in flavor and they're easily digestible. And we can stir this all together. Oh man, that looks good and it smells amazing. Now, an important thing to know about Greek yogurt is that it will curdle if it gets brought to a boil. So if you need to reheat the pasta or the sauce, you'll want to do it over very low heat and do not allow it to boil. So after a good stir, this pasta is ready to serve. And to add a little more flavor and aesthetic, I'm gonna sprinkle on a little bit of some Parmesan cheese and break up a little bit of parsley. You could also use basil. It is ready to dig in. That is so good. As soon as you bite in, you just get this burst of the most delicious Italian flavors. I love the marinara sauce that we used, and then the Greek yogurt just adds a little more tang and intensifies the flavor. And the ground beef is so juicy and flavorful. And I love the texture of the pasta and the depth of flavor that you get from those additional vegetables, which are hardly detectable. Well, thank you so much for joining me today in my kitchen. I've included the link to the full recipe and it's in the video description below. That takes you to my website, gentletummy.com. And I invite you to like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And I cannot wait to have you join me again in my kitchen.